Join the Acts Ministries as we celebrate 30 years of ministry, March the 8th through the 15th. That's 1 week of celebration with special guests, Dr. Elaine Schaus-Waller from Virginia Beach, Virginia.
He's a man and a woman who are saying, this is who we will become, that we don't know fully what we're going to become, but we do know that we vow that as we come together, something bigger than each of us individually could do can now happen. Oh, somebody better bless God.
And Dr. Noah Nicholson from Chicago, Illinois.
Somebody just take a step. Tell the devil, I'm walking over it. I'm walking out of it. I'm claiming new territory. I'm claiming new vision. I'm claiming new miracles. I'm claiming new power.
That's 1 full week of celebration. Our theme this year is looking at ministry through 2020 spiritual lens. Don't forget, March the 8th through the 15th, as Acts Ministry celebrates 30 years of ministry.
All glory he demands it.
Welcome to the Words to Empower podcast, featuring Bishop Frank Stewart, pastor of the Acts Ministry in Conway and North Little Rock, and now Pastor Stewart.
As we've been talking about denying the greatness that is within us. To deny the greatness that is within us is to deny the greatness of God. And we have used 4 characters from the Bible and a host of scriptures that proves this. One of the main scriptures we've used is 1 John 4:4, where John declares, "Ye are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world." The only reason why anyone would deny the greatness that is within them is that they don't realize what John says in 1 John 4:4. What the Bible says is that greater is he that is within us. The danger and the consequences are these, that if I don't recognize the greatness that God has placed within me, that if I don't understand I am fearfully and wonderfully made, then what happens is that if I don't recognize the greatness, I won't fulfill the commandment that God has given me. And that is, and greater works shall you do than what I have done. That's what Jesus said. You won't do greater works until we recognize the greatness in us. And the greatness in us is not based on us. It's based on the greatness of the hand of the Creator, the greatness of God. We've been studying 4 characters. Jeremiah, when Jeremiah said to God he couldn't do what God asked him to do because of his age. Gideon, because of his family. And he said because of his insignificant in comparison to even his family. And then King Saul, who said he came out of one of the least families and he was the least in that family. Basically what King Saul said, that he was the most unimportant, the most insignificant person in the nation. That's amazing. The last character we're studying, and that is Moses. As great and awesome as Moses was, he had some problems. And we've been talking about that. We started in Exodus chapter 3. We talked about his story, how in tune with God Moses was the first 40 years, and believing that he was the deliverer, believing that he was the one that was ordained to set Israel free. But then something happened in the relationship that he thought he had with the people that he loved. Rejection came. And when rejection came, Moses, he left Egypt. And leaving Egypt, he spent 40 years in Midian. It's 40 years later that God comes to Moses and begins to tell Moses that he has chosen him to bring the children of Israel out of Egypt, out of over 400 years living in Egypt. And Moses says to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? So the first thing that Moses says to God, I don't know who you think I am, because I'm not that person. Let me tell you that we are who God says we are. I am who he thinks I am. Now, when we understand that, that will explain sometimes just some of the things we're going through. Because some of the things we're going through is really a compliment from God. Because he knows the greatness that is within us, that we can make it through it. And we can not only make it through it, we can make it through it victoriously. And we can make it through it with a smile. And we can reap. We can reap what comes out of a struggle, out of a battle. And that's why he says to us that we're more than conquerors. More than conquerors. The greatness that is within us. To conquer a child of God that is walking in ordered footsteps would mean to conquer God. That's right. To conquer a child of God that is walking in ordered footsteps, believing and trusting God, would mean to conquer God. That's impossible. The Bible is clear that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. Why? Because greater is he that is within us than he that is in the world. Because the great God of the universe lives in us. As long as we focus and walk in ordered footsteps, it is impossible. It is impossible for anything in this world, anything present, anything from the past, anything in the future, anything created, anything made to conquer us. Because the greater one is on the inside of us. That's not denying. That's just only confirming and affirming that there's greatness in us because God lives in us and he created us. So God tries to encourage Moses that he is the one. And Moses comes up again and said, well, what I'm going to tell him when I go. And God answers him and tell him, I am who I am, the great I am, not the great I was, or not the great I will be. I am the great I am. So he encourages Moses. Then we move to chapter number 4. God is having a long dialogue with Moses, and he's speaking to Moses out of a burning bush. Wow, that is just incredible. That's an incredible sight. The mere fact that he's speaking to Moses in a miraculous situation. He's doing the impossible while he's speaking to Moses, and yet and still Moses doesn't believe that God can do the impossible through him. Now get that straight. He believed in God's ability to do the impossible. He believes in that. But to do it through him. And we're going to see why he didn't feel like he felt like he was the wrong person. Get somebody else. Because he didn't believe God could do it through him. In Exodus chapter 4, verse 1, he says, then Moses answered God again. He said, but suppose they will not believe me or listen to my voice. Suppose they say the Lord has not appeared to you. This was the third excuse or question that Moses raised. That what if they say you have not appeared to me? God dealt with that. He met Moses at every weakness, at everything that was coming out of him, what he was thinking. Then we go to verse number 10 in chapter 4. God speaking to Moses and telling Moses God is persistent. God doesn't give up. God doesn't give up. Moses, 40 years and on the backside of the mountain. That's a pretty powerful time. 40 years on the backside of the mountain. He hasn't been preaching any sermons, hadn't been doing anything. 40 years on the backside of the mountain.
Stay tuned for more of Frank Stewart. And now for some special announcements.
Thanks for partnering with the Acts Ministries. We value your service and your donations. That's why we've made it easy to make contributions to support our ministry. Simply go to your web browser and click the search bar and type in actsministriesonline.org. Then click Donate Online. It's really that easy. For mobile giving, text the amount you wish to donate to 501-3 302-4242. That's Simple Give.
And now, more of Pastor Frank Stewart.
But God had called him. This was time that we would think would be inactive. Brothers and sisters, let me tell you that what God does is get a person ready most of their lives for a short period of time in their life. That's why we have the supreme example with Jesus. 90% of his life was spent in preparation. And then we see Moses, 2/3 of his life. And you will see that example throughout the scriptures. A tremendous amount of time and energy is devoted in the preparation and the pouring into a person for them to understand who they are and the greatness that lies within them. So 40 years has elapsed since Moses left Egypt. But now some things have happened because of the rejection. And when God began to speak to Moses and wouldn't let him off the hook, so to speak, wouldn't change his mind. Notice what Moses says to God in Exodus 4 and verse 10. Then Moses said to the Lord, "O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." Now, so here's Moses, and he's getting down to his final excuses. He says, Lord, first he said, "Who am I?" And then he said, "I can't do it." And then he just says, "Lord, I can't do this. I don't speak well." That is not the reference that is given to Moses in the book of Acts. Let me just read what is said about Moses in the book of Acts. In the book of Acts, it says, and Moses, this is Acts chapter 7, verse number 22. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptian. Remember, he spent 40 years in the palace and was mighty in words and in deeds. It says he was mighty in words and deeds. And when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel. And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him and avenged him that was oppressed and smote the Egyptian. For he supposed his brethren would have understood how that God by his hand would deliver them but they understood not. He expected them to understand. Now you see Moses is in a situation as if that never happened because of what happened in his past. The way he sees himself, that is so critical, because there are things that can happen in our lives, all of us, that from that point, we see ourselves totally different. We give up on ourselves. Doesn't mean we give up on God. Doesn't mean we stop going to church, but the dream changes. The vision changes. What a person believes they can accomplish. They stop dreaming. They stop believing, because one incident has the ability to deflate and to drain a person's self-worth and self-esteem and damage their self-image of themselves, not of God. Now you got to see that. They don't understand that, but they see God as still the great God that can do anything. And we know God can do it. The problem becomes, will he do it for me? Now the Hebrew writer says, if we believe like that, it says we can't please God because we don't have faith in him. Faith is not only believing in the existence of God, it's believing in God. Let me say it again. Faith is not only believing in the existence of God, it is believing God. And believing God can do anything. And that means he can do it through us. And he's already, in his proactiveness, placed greatness within us. So Moses began to say, I can't speak well, I'm slow of speech. But the writer in Acts says that wasn't the case. All of this is coming from the rejection. That's why it's so important to guard our children. Because one conversation, one negative word can change the dream of a child. That will change the course of their lives. God says to Moses, so the Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Or who maketh the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? And what God is saying, I have power over that. I created you. I created you. I know you. I know what you're capable of. I know you. But watch this. Moses still doesn't stop. In verse 12, he says, now, God says to Moses, now therefore go, I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall say. God says to Moses, I'll show you, I'll teach you. Here's Moses. Look what Moses says. But he said, oh, my Lord, please send by the hand of whomever else you may send. What Moses says to God is get somebody else. He said, get somebody else. I cannot do it. You see that persistent? When you look at Acts chapter 7, he had the same persistence that he could do it. But because of the rejection in his life, he's lost the image of the greatness that's within him. It says in verse 14, so the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. God got angry with Moses. His anger burned. And he said, is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well. And look, he's also coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. So God tells him that. But when you read the story, Moses did his own talking. He did his own talking because God qualified him. And Moses had to come to a point of understanding that the greatness God had placed within him as a child, and the greatness that he had seen in the palace, it was still there. It just had been eroded and covered by the rejection and by the events that can happen in a person's life.
For mobile giving, text the amount you wish to donate to 501-302-4242.
The Acts Church in North Little Rock is located at 1224 Franklin Street. Morning Glory begins at 8 a.m. on Sunday mornings. Sunday school begins at 8:30 a.m. And for a powerful word, join us at 9:30 a.m. for our morning worship service. Bible study is each Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. At our Conway location, Morning Glory begins at 10 a.m. Sunday school begins at 10:30 a.m. Worship service begins at 11:30 a.m. On Thursday, our Bible class begins at 6:30 p.m. For more information, go to actsministriesonline.org or give us a call at 501-329-2055.
Thank you for tuning in to the Acts Ministry Podcast. The Acts Church is located at 1423 Englewood Street in Conway and 1224 Franklin Street in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Tune in each day to hear an inspiring word from Pastor Frank Stewart.